You know what sucks? Because it makes it harder for it to be genuine. What sucks is constantly being told you should smile more, regardless of the reason. People say you should smile more, you'd be prettier if you'd smile more, you'd be happier if you'd smile more, or if you're happy, why aren't you smiling? You know, or it would make me feel better if you'd smile. Like, why does anyone have to perform for anyone else's entertainment or sense of comfort? And then I really get sick of hearing it only takes one muscle to smile versus blah 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 muscles to frown. And the number of muscles people say changes, because you know what? That's actually not true. And it's time people started really speaking up about that stupid, toxic positivity, motivational BS. It was actually made up in the early 1900s as, you know, motivational BS, and just repeated and repeated and repeated until people just believed it. But it's not true. You know, your resting face takes basically no muscle use, no energy. You know, just let people relax. It takes like 10 to 12 muscles for a genuine smile. And that's if your facial muscles and nerves all work properly. That's if you're not buried under trauma or chronic illness, chronic fatigue. You've been masking your whole life, masking fatigue, you know. No wonder so many of us sometimes just feel like sitting and watching the world burn. Because it kind of feels like the world just wants to sit and watch us burn. Whether it's for their own entertainment, or they've got nothing better going on, you know, whatever. We go on and on about all that. But the main point of this is because I hear a lot of you have the same problems, being told what to do with your damn face. Or, you know, whatever. There's all kinds of reasons people don't smile, whether they don't feel like smiling, or, you know, so it doesn't hurt to smile. Yeah, it does sometimes. Yeah, it does sometimes. And then when you're constantly told what to do, like I said, it makes it harder to want to smile, because then you get into that kind of, you know, rebellious teen attitude, like, well, tell me what to do, MFR, you know, I'm just going to do the opposite. It makes me not want to smile. It makes me want to frown at you. It makes me want to stare a hole through you. And I don't like feeling like that. You know, I'm supposed to be shiny. I love it that you all love the stay shiny thing. It warms my heart. Because I thought it was kind of silly, but, it is hard to stay shiny all the time. Shouldn't have to. Nobody has to. Nobody has to smile all the time, you know. Make a choice today to only smile if you feel like it. And the more you give yourself and your face a break, the easier it will be to genuinely smile. And the more you'll actually start finding yourself smiling when you don't even realize it. You know, I have the problem where I don't realize I'm not smiling my whole life. And I'm so sick of thinking about my face or talking about my face, but I feel like it really needs to be explained, because I see a lot of other people having this problem too. And you know, the more I learn about myself, you know, my face is one of them, and the more I realize, you know, why I've always thought I was smiling, but turns out I'm not. You know, my cranial, facial, muscles, nerves don't respond properly, you know, for whatever it is, their baseline. And then you've got chronic illness and fatigue on top of it, and you've got, you know, TBI. When I was 6 years old, I ran into the corner of a truck door, and it went right through my face right here. And I was only supposed to get one stitch, but they didn't tell me, you know, they wrap you up like a burrito when you're a kid. They didn't tell me they were sticking a needle in my face, I guess, to numb it or whatever. And when they did that, I sat up and it ripped it open even more. So I had to get like 5 stitches instead of 1. And so like this side of my face has never worked properly since then. You know, so there's all kinds of reasons, you know, all kinds of things I'm learning about myself. Why I might tend to zone out, or, you know, my memory loss, whatever. So I'm learning these things about myself. I'm realizing these things about myself, connecting the dots. And I think a lot of you all are too. And I think it's great that we're all, you know, finding each other and finding our voices together. I've got several minutes of video of me just sitting here like staring at the camera, like, you know, it's like, should I show what burnout and shutdown looks like? You know, I go to say something, it's all in my head, you know, I'm watching the words go by. And I go to say it and I just freeze, and then I just kind of sit there and like zone out or whatever. It's a trauma response. Well, like my head, apparently my phone keeps running out of memory. I don't know at what point I was talking that cut off, but anyway, a lot of the things we do, the way we act, the way we look, whatever, it's a trauma response. You know, sickness, masking, you know, whether we have CPTSD, PTSD, you know, sit and list all the things. And I've kind of forgotten where this is going, as usual. But the point is, give yourself a break. You know, don't let other people's toxic positivity, you know, keep dragging you down. You know, but at the same time, don't let people tell you when you should smile. Especially if it's for their entertainment or their own comfort. You know, what about yours? And you think about that too. Your own comfort. Face gets really tired. It really does. And yeah, I get tired of talking about my face. Because I know there's nothing wrong with my face. But I do know that, you know, I have delayed reactions, and I'm realizing that more and more. Well, not that I'm realizing it more and more, I'm realizing why. I'm learning why my reactions are delayed. And while it is overwhelming to keep finding out, well, you know, you've got, you know, this is because of a lifetime of illness, or this is, you know, because or exacerbated by head trauma, or whatever. It's just like, is there anything else that I'm going to have to, you know, unlearn, rewire from? It gets exhausting. But I never realized just how much energy really is wrapped up in your facial expressions, and just the way you carry your whole body. When you're constantly in fight or flight, freeze, fawn response, you know, you feel like you want to run away, or you need to make yourself smaller, or you need to mimic the expressions and mannerisms of those around you in order to fit in. Stop putting that pressure on yourself, because you're just going to end up like me. If you're already not, you're just going to look really awkward, because it's going to make you, you know, I already have, you know, I have twitches or tremors from, you know, my nervous system, you know, is dysregulated. I'm working on it. We all are. We don't realize how dysregulated we are until we start to find peace and healing and regulation. And it just feels so completely different than just relaxing, you know, normally. And then, you know, but obviously you're not always going to be, and, you know, once you find the peace and healing and stuff, you're going to have your flashes, you're going to have your flares, your days. You know, it's not a setback, it's not a regression, you know, it's not a loop We're just healing in layers, and, you know, we can't be everything all the time. So don't let somebody tell you what your mood should be, how you should feel, how you should look, how you should act. You know, you're allowed to sit with your depression. You're allowed to sit and, you know, feel like, you know, you just love watching karma striking everywhere. It's just, you know, a good day watching karma slap everybody around. But then at the same time, I hate that bitterness that really starts to rise up. And I know you all do too. There's a lot of times where, you know, I really have to sit and think about what emotion it is I'm having. Or even if it's my emotions. You know, we feed off other people so much, and we see all these injustices in the world, and, you know, it'll really light a fire under our ass and just, you know, cause another cycle of doom thinking. I don't know if what I'm trying to say is coming off very clear. But thoughts. You know, just, and if you're one of those people that goes around telling people to smile all the time, stop it. Just stop it. You know, if you're having a good time and your face doesn't reflect it, that doesn't mean anything, you know. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. And the real people who matter, you know, will see you for you. And that's all that matters. But what matters most of all is that you see for yourself. And stop letting people gaslight you, telling you how many muscles it takes to smile on your face, because it takes a lot more than you realize. And when, you know, we have all the reasons that we've already discussed and then some, it does make it harder. And then when you're trying not to just sit and like glitch or laugh at the bullshit being thrown at you, it makes it really hard to smile. And then you get to like, you know, my smile is not for you, it's for me. And then, you know, yeah, that's true. But also, at the same time, I don't want to always feel like that. So, you know, it's a paradox, it's a conundrum, it's a pickle, whatever. Message of the day: smile if you feel like it, don't if you don't. Just know you're doing a good job. And if you need to sit and just ramble at yourself, find your words, find your thoughts, find your smile. Practice your facial expressions in the mirror, in the camera. I mean, I do that. I've been doing that. And I started, you know, because I was having a hard time making videos and talking, I started just recording and making videos just for myself, just for practice. You know, it might seem silly that me, you know, someone who's almost halfway into their 40s, has to practice talking, has to practice facial expressions. You know, I feel like there's a lot of us that have been masking and not realizing it. Like, we're only now learning what masking is. And it's really hard to unmask. So, yeah. Just be unbothered. You know what? Be as unbothered as somebody is unbothered about giving you unsolicited advice. How about that? We'll all be unbothered today as someone who has no shame is unbothered about giving unsolicited advice. So, there you go. Stay shiny, y'all.